Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 54. My God, how the time has flown. 54 episodes of Halfway Through the Heat, the world's first, greatest, and last Trans Pacific wrestling podcast. I'm Tom. I'm in beautiful Connecticut in the eastern United States, and joining me from the bright lights of Kawasaki City, Japan, is Joe. Joe, how are you?
I am good. We've been passed over by the typhoon. Went right through us actually. So I guess we weren't passed over, but we got hit, and that was yesterday. No, that was the day before yesterday. Um, but now it's good. It's still raining though.
The the only good thing about the typhoon is it required you to stay home from work, and so you were able to watch SummerSlam with me and Mark. So we'll talk about that later in the show. Uh, Also on the show, we're going to talk about the injury plague that's continuing in the WWE. We're going to talk about whether it's illegal for men to wrestle women in New York. We've got some news about some potential real life showdowns backstage WWE. We're going to talk a bit about Takeover and SummerSlam. We're going to look into whether or not we should have a hot take on whether Seth Rollins is unsafe to wrestle, and we're going to appreciate the work of grizzled old man Brian Kendrick. But first, we're going to start off this week, as we always do, by saying something positive about Raw. Joe, what about this week's Raw stood out to you as particularly good, worthy of positivity?
Well, I guess it was nice to see Bailey.
Yes, it was. I agree.
Like the thing with Raw this week is that there were like no matches. Like I don't, I feel like there was really short on matches.
Um, I I liked the main event, even though Roman Reigns won and people hated that, but I thought it was a well done match, and I like that Owens won his match, and so he'll be in this four way for the Universal Championship, which I still think is a ridiculous name. But yeah, I don't know. It was an odd Raw because of course it started with Finn Balor relinquishing the title that he had won the night before at SummerSlam, because he got hurt and he's going to be out 6 months, at least 6 months. And you could kind of actually see during the match with Seth Rollins where he got hurt. He got the buckle bomb into the barricade, and you could see him like really react sharply with his right arm goes into hits the edge of the wall, and he immediately grabs it. And sometimes it's hard to tell if people are selling an injury or if they're really hurt, but it looked. That's not the kind of thing you would sell if you were trying to sell a buckle bomb into the barricade. You'd like grab your back or something. Um, we'll talk about that more in a bit. But yeah, overall, I thought Raw wasn't terrible. I thought it was a solid effort. I know people were unhappy. The Brooklyn crowd. This has become like a mini WrestleMania, SummerSlam. Like it's a weekend long events, and other promotions come to wherever SummerSlam is with Brooklyn these days. And then the Raw after SummerSlam is also in Brooklyn, and there's all these all the super fans who came out to see SummerSlam also have Raw tickets, and so the crowd is more testy than they normally would be. Um, it was all right. I don't know. I thought those like super self-aware smart fan crowds can be kind of irritating. Um,
I did enjoy the Bob Backlund beating up on Titus O'Neil for a little bit.
yeah, that was good because it interrupted one of the worst promos I've ever seen on television.
Yes.
Oh, it was so bad. It was not quite a good lucha thing level of bad, but it was bad. And why are we getting another primetime players feud?
We need another primetime players feud, Tom. Need.
I don't know who they think cares about this tag team. No one cared about them when they were together, and no one certainly cares about them now that they've split up like a third time.
I care, Tom. But I only care because Bob Backlund's in there. Once Bob Backlund is gone, I don't care anymore.
No, I agree. It was good to see Bob. It's always good to see Bob Backlund on television. And some of it was decent. It just felt like they were scrambling. Obviously, they had to scramble because Balor is hurt, and whatever direction they were going to go in, they had to hang a sharp left. Um, it was cool to see Bailey come out. It was kind of expected, I think. Um, and smart fan, it was sort of a muted reaction. I mean, they were happy, but they weren't like going nuts. I think probably because they had all read spoilers or dirt sheet speculation or whatever. And anyway, those people kind of think of themselves as too cool for school. I'm really down on the Raw crowd tonight.
Yeah, that's okay though. It's okay to be
Yeah,
down
it's
on the
fine.
Raw crowd. They're usually.
One thing I will say, actually, maybe this is my positive thing. Charlotte was so good on the mic. I have never seen her that good and that confident on the mic before. Maybe it's because she doesn't have her dad. She's finally doesn't, is without her dad like peering over her shoulder, and she can relax a little bit. But like, I was actually sort of engaged by Charlotte last night, which is rare because normally she gets the mic and it's just like wallpaper. But I thought she did pretty well.
That's true. I mean, it definitely was better than it has been. So maybe you're right. Maybe she was just nervous with her dad out there.
Who knows? Um, well, let's move from the positivity because a lot of our news is sort of is Raw related at least. Um, but and we've talked about the injury to Finn Balor out for 6 months. Also injured at SummerSlam with Sasha Banks. She's got a back thing. It may only be about a month. There was rude speculation the night of SummerSlam that it was a wellness policy violation, but no, it's a back thing. Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense that people were speculating that because suddenly she was off shows for 30 days. So
right.
you're just like, oh, what does that mean? 30-day suspension. But apparently not.
Yeah. No. Apparently not. Apparently, and it doesn't need surgery, so that's good. But the other thing, other news that I want to talk about briefly, speaking of wellness policy suspensions, is that over on Pro Wrestling Sheet, which is a great website you should check out if you haven't. Ryan Satin reports exclusively that Eva Marie has given him a statement about her suspension for wellness policy violations, and the Red Queen says that the whole thing is a paperwork mix-up, and that she just missed a deadline to file some paperwork, and so they suspended her for a wellness policy violation. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's her side of the story. I don't know that speaking publicly about it will help her. Like, because I mean that's what Adam Rose did, right? He came out and he was like, "This is bullshit. This is Adderall. I have a prescription for it." And now Adam Rose is Aldo Rose on the Indies, whereas Connor from the Ascension just took his suspension without any comment publicly. And as we record, I'm watching Connor on SmackDown Live, which is actually kind of a bummer because I can't stand the Ascension.
Oh, poor Ascension.
But the point is, maybe they don't like it when you talk publicly about your the reason for your wellness policy violation.
I think they don't.
I think they don't. And they did actually. This is a kind of they they addressed it in a really clever way in SummerSlam. Eva Marie has that like personal like disembodied ring announcer.
That was really great when they did the fake announcement for Eva Marie at the
Yeah, because after she got suspended, people were like, "Oh, I hope they have her fake announcer say that she can't make it," and they really did. And he even said she was suffering from exhaustion, which was like the typical thing that celebrities would. That's what their representatives would tell like tabloids back in the day about when they because they were all coked up or something. They would say that's it's exhaustion. That was really funny. I like that a lot.
it was really good. I enjoyed that.
Um, the other thing on Raw is that there was no build up to this, and it made me think it was an angle. But apparently, the Dudley Boys are really and truly done with WWE. Their contract was up, and they couldn't reach terms with WWE. Again, according to Pro Wrestling Sheet, and so that's it. That was their sort of farewell. I think it's probably a measure of the respect that Vince or whoever has for the Dudleys that they even gave them that, because normally people are just gone. It's not like they did like a big farewell to Ryback or anything.
Farewell,
So they got
Ryback.
farewell Ryback.
Is that the Ryborg in the Impact Zone?
Is that the Ryborg in the Impact Zone? So the Dudleys got a little farewell, and we're tweeting nice things. I don't think it's out of the question that the Dudleys will be back at some point in some capacity. Nobody retires in wrestling, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're probably just done with WWE. I assume that we're gonna get Bully Ray in the Impact Zone again.
That would be interesting. He did not leave on great terms, but it's possible. Um, Probably we'll see them in some indies or something. I don't know. This is not the end of the Dudleys for sure.
They'll be
Um,
somewhere. They'll show up
they'll be
somewhere.
if they were going to do a proper farewell, they should have got little Spike Dudley to come out.
They should have got Big Dick Dudley come out.
I think he's dead.
Oh, they even better.
But they could have gotten Sign Guy.
Sign Guy Dudley. All the other Dudleys that we can't
All the
remember.
other Dudleys. Dances with Dudley.
That's probably a little too racist.
Yeah, probably. Probably they would not bring out Dances with Dudleys. Maybe just Sign Guy. Although little Spike Dudley is a financial planner. He works in Boston. He's like a financial planner now, and maybe he's done with it. Doesn't need any wrestling.
Yeah, but if he were, I mean, they probably didn't think about it because if he's in Boston, he could have just drove down.
I know, right?
Could have taken the Chinatown bus.
But then it was. I mean, it was just they basically their whole reason for going out there was just to take a bump from the club there
That's true.
to just get beat down by the club to kind of give the club some steam. Um. So the last bit of WWE news before we move on to what is absolutely my favorite news story of the week. This WWE news is also reported on Pro Wrestling Sheet. A lot of good stuff on Pro Wrestling Sheet this week. But it's been reported elsewhere too. So SummerSlam main event is Brock Lesnar against Randy Orton, and it ends with Lesnar just like pounding Orton with some elbows, like getting him on the ground and just like elbowing him in the head, and Orton is busted open hard way, as they say in the biz, not a blade job, as in he was legitimately bleeding from a legitimately like a not a deliberately well, he didn't cut himself with a razor. He was busted open by Brock Lesnar's terrifying elbows of death. So apparently, people backstage thought this whole thing might have been like a shoot. And one of those people is Chris Jericho, who's sort of a locker room leader, and was apparently asking the crew backstage like what's going on, and they were still busy shooting it, so they were just like saying like Chris, not now, not now, and he's getting madder and madder, and then Lesnar comes back there, and they kind of square off, and they're going like chest to chest, and and then again according to Ryan Satin's sources, Brock kisses Chris Jericho on the forehead and says, "Kiss me back, pussy." So that's I don't know, that's weird. So Jericho did not kiss him. He squared off and ready to fight, and then Lesnar put his arms behind his back and said, "Hit me or kiss me, bitch." At which point Triple H and a bunch of other people came in and pulled them apart. So Vince comes back to try to pull them apart. Everyone's yelling and trying to get at each other, and Vince is yelling at Jericho to be more professional. Jericho yells at Vince saying Lesnar was unprofessional for shooting on Orton, and then Vince, again according to these sources, Vince yells, "It's a work. What's wrong with you?" I'm inclined to think it was the whole thing was a work because they had because Shane McMahon came out and then got beat up by Brock Lesnar right after, and also because they had a video and a photo slideshow of Randy Orton's nasty injury getting stitched up by doctors. So, I mean that when someone is legitimately hurt, they don't like linger on it. They don't have footage of it. They don't, it's just. So, what do you think about this? Do you? I mean, like, is it kind of impressive that something was able to actually like fool a wrestler as veteran as Chris Jericho into thinking it was real?
I think like it's probably it was probably an error at least. I mean, I assume they didn't mean to cut him that much. Um, I think there was probably going to be something like a stoppage. You know what I mean? Like how UFC does it, where the ref will like hover over and then just like pull him off and call the match.
Yeah.
Like I assume that was probably something that was planned because I saw the not the Vince McMahon thing, but the Shane McMahon thing was obviously planned.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So, but like I think probably the gaping wound and pool of blood in the ring was not planned.
No, I think they they sort of intended for some blood, but I don't think they thought Orton was going to bleed as much as he did.
Yeah, because he really bled a lot. Like there was like a huge pool of blood in the ring.
It was like legitimately gruesome. I mean, it was having seen a lot of wrestling injuries, this one was I mean, memorable. There was like this stream of blood from his head to the mat.
Yeah, it was not pretty.
Um, but a lot of people online thought it was for real too. But the fact that people in the back thought it was real is, I think, a really interesting. It may also be a testament to Lesnar and his reputation. I don't know. Um,
But it's pretty interesting that Chris Jericho was just like, whatever, I'm gonna fight Brock Lesnar.
I know. Good for Jericho. Not backing down from crazy kiss me Lesnar. That's a weirdly intimidating thing to do in a fight with someone. Kiss them and be like, kiss me back. That's like some strange, like Bane supervillain shit. Lesnar's a scary dude.
That's some weird prison guy stuff.
Yeah. Like you could see Bray Wyatt's character doing that really well. Um but yeah, so anyway, that was weird. And there's the WWE announced a $500 kayfabe fine for Lesnar because of it, which, because he beat up Shane McMahon, which is obviously, the whole thing is a work. You don't, but interesting. So it doesn't seem like there's any real heat on Jericho because he was in Raw the next night having in the main event against the God Roman Reigns. Um,
I hope they're not planning on putting the title on Roman Reigns.
oh man, that would be so. I like Roman Reigns, but I don't want to see that. I also don't want to see Seth Rollins get it. I'm bored with Seth Rollins.
Yeah, I'd rather see Kevin Owens get it, or not Big Cass. I guess Kevin Owens is the only person I really want to get out of the four that are in the four
Yeah,
way.
Kevin Owens would be a great choice. Um, and I don't. I mean, like, especially if they were going to go with Balor, which was a really bold decision for them, and I was really excited to see what they did with it. And of course, now we'll never know. Um, so Owens could also be a bold decision. Owens would be a great heel champ.
Yeah, he would.
Absolutely wonderful. He's so good on the mic. He's good in the ring, and he has that like perfect combination of like, whiny, like I deserve this. I worked hard for it, with like mocking, sort of cuttingly insulting jerk personality. I really think he could go great places as a bad guy champ. But like Big Cass is not in any sense ready for it. Uh, Rollins is boring to me anyway, and Reigns is also kind of boring.
Yeah, but the thing with Reigns is that like the crowd still hates him.
They do. If they were going to make him a heel champ, fine, but they wouldn't. They would try to make him a face. Even though he's basically, his whole thing with Rusev, he was the bad guy and Rusev was the good guy in any other universe.
Yeah, in any storytelling you could possibly think of, Roman Reigns was the bad guy there.
Yeah, he comes out and he throws the guy's wife into a cake, and then he like runs out, like won't fight the guy head on. They did have a good match on Raw, and then during SummerSlam, he like before the match even starts, he like takes the guy out so he doesn't have to face him in the ring. Like he is the bad guy. I don't know what they're doing with him, honestly. I don't know what they. But I mean, he's still a good wrestler. His match with Jericho on Raw was good.
True, but nobody wants to see him as the champion except Vince.
And me.
You don't want to see him as the champion.
No, 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 I don't. I want to see my man Kevin Owens be the champion. Or honestly, like, yeah, I don't know. No, Kevin Owens, he'd be a good champ.
Yeah, that's the thing.
He,
Like when you're thinking about it, like you've got these four people, and you're just like, well, can we please not have somebody who was formerly in the Shield be the champion?
honestly, I think it'll probably be Rollins. I think he'll win it.
Yeah.
But I kind of hope he doesn't. It's also sort of a weird, when you think about it, it's a weird foursome. They're gonna have a four-way match, and like you essentially have two heels, Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, who the crowd likes, and then you have a face the crowd hates, Roman Reigns, and then a face the crowd likes. It's just a bizarre combination.
It's a little weird.
It's a little weird. They could definitely pull it off. I think Owens would be the most inspired choice. Rollins would be a safe choice. Big Cass would actually be an exciting choice. He would be a disaster as a champ, but he'd be an exciting champ. And Reigns would just nobody wants to see it.
It's true. Nobody wants Reigns back.
Not even me. And I like Roman
You
Reigns.
have a
I think
T-shirt.
he's I as you keep reminding people, yes, I have a T-shirt. I think he just needs to.
I
I think he just
I
needs some
actually
time in the
wonder
mid
how,
card.
how often do you wear the Roman Reigns T-shirt?
I mean, not that often, but I don't wear. I mean, I wear my wrestling shirt. Like I don't wear wrestling T-shirts to work,
Yes,
obviously.
you do. Don't lie.
So I wear them on weekends or when I go for I go for walks or I'm out working in my garden or something. I wear wrestling T-shirts.
Oh
And
wait,
the Roman Reigns T-shirt, it's in that rotation.
I uh, I assume that you don't wear the wrestling T-shirts to work because you're too busy wearing heavy metal T-shirts to work.
That's right. I have this huge. Yeah, I mean, I've got like a whole closet full of heavy metal shirts that I wear to work. So I can't. I can't. Every once in a while, I'll work in like that Sammy Callahan shirt that looks like a death metal album cover. But other than that, um, yeah. So I don't know. We'll see what happens next week on Raw. But the last bit of news before we get into maybe a more substantive discussion about Takeover and SummerSlam. We're not just WWE here, folks. We get into the indies, and this is an indie. I have not actually seen one of their shows, but I've seen a lot of their wrestlers. Tier 1 wrestling in New York, I believe in Brooklyn primarily. This is a story that was on Gothamist.com, and it's on closetofanxiety.tumblr.com right now. You can go read it. There's video and everything. A wrestler named Bonesaw Jesse Brooks, the baddest woman on the planet. Um, she was at a tier 1 event on Friday, and she was wrestling Mark House in at St. Finbar's Catholic Church over there in Bath Beach, Brooklyn, when the bell rang, and she didn't know why. So in New York State, this is a weird thing, but it's true. The state athletic commission regulates professional wrestling, and they have representatives who go to wrestling shows to make sure that the promotions don't break their rules. Like in New York, you can't have brawling in the crowd. It's literally against the law at a wrestling show to have wrestlers fight in the crowd, and you can't have fire in a show. That's also against the law. That actually makes a lot of sense. The fire one, and let's be honest, the crowd one, yeah, also makes a little bit of sense. But so this match is about to start. It's a woman versus a man, and this deputy commissioner of the New York State Athletic Commission named Robert Orlando calls for the bell, which like never happens. And Robert Orlando tells Chris Levin, who's the co-owner of Valkyrie, the indie promotion who was there. He says women can't wrestle men. It's illegal. Like, again, it's ridiculous that the athletic commission regulates pro wrestling. It's not an athletic competition.
It's a little strange. And then the kicker for this story is that it turns out that intergender wrestling is not illegal in New York and can actually take place. It's not prohibited.
Intergender boxing is illegal in New York, and this deputy commissioner just decided on the fly. The story goes into detail. There's this long back and forth. They're arguing. They're angrily arguing over whether or not this is legit or not. And Tier 1, the owner, Dennis Long, like forced the commissioner to call his supervisor at the commission, who, according to Dennis Long, said, "A man can wrestle a man, a woman can wrestle a woman. The only way a woman can face a man is in the bedroom." Like, what is Jim Cornette a commissioner at the New York State Athletic Commission or something? Um. So, the promotion, like all promotions in New York, they have to renew their license with the Athletic Commission every year. So Dennis Long was sort of like nervous about it, and now Tier 1 is actually going to file a complaint with the City Human Rights Commission. And the Athletic Commission issued a statement to Gothamist, acknowledging that intergender wrestling is not, in fact, illegal in New York and apologizing for the whole thing. Um, so I don't know. That's kind of interesting to me. A lot of this is interesting to me, like the fact that there's still this weird state supervision of pro wrestling, and then the idea that somebody would just like stop a match because they don't like intergender wrestling. I think it one thing it shows to me, and tell me if you agree or disagree, is that intergender wrestling is still kind of this like fringe thing. Like it's not widely seen, even though I mean, WWE has done it, TNA has done it. Um, I think it's this kind of thing when people see it, and they're like, this is over the top, this is over the line, we can't have this.
Yeah, I think it still has that kind of image.
Yeah, I mean, people just, I don't know, it just creeps a lot of people out, and um, I could see why it creeps some people out, but you know, if you watch the matches, it's there's nothing that you'll see that's sort of more disturbing than like you know, a comic book movie where Harley Quinn is fighting a guy or whatever. I mean, it's probably better because in those movies they're ostensibly killing people.
That's true. But you know, I guess like seeing it live is different than seeing it in a movie. People have a different level of reality when they're watching a movie, I guess. They
It's
realize
true.
that like everything is fake. Whereas when it's pro wrestling, you know, it's real. It's real when when intergender wrestling comes up, Tom. Otherwise, it's not.
That's the thing. Like people laugh at wrestling and they're like, "Oh, you know it's fake, right?" Until something happens in wrestling they don't like, and then suddenly it's deadly serious.
Exactly. Like, um, you know, nobody is going to complain about wrestling being like too brutal. They're really killing each other out there. No one actually thinks that until like you have a man giving a pile driver to a woman, and then
Right.
like, oh my god, I can't believe he did that to a woman. It it's not it's not he didn't really do that. They're working
No.
together to make it look like they did. He did. That's what wrestling is.
Yeah, and I mean, like, arguably, a lot of times it's sort of easier to do a convincing looking but totally safe move to a woman because they just weigh a lot less.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. So like when you see some like brutal looking wrestling moves done to a woman, like it's usually, you know, safer. In some situations, like I mean, have you seen that like Candice LeRae thing where Cedric Alexander does like the backstabber to her and she like flies way up in the
Yes.
air?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It looks so brutal, but like it was like nothing because
Exactly.
she's so light. Basically he's just throwing her off of him with his legs. It's not even like a um you know, it's not causing any damage to Cedric Alexander for because the weight is so small, but also like it's like being slightly thrown.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And like I saw not long ago at at American Rana, Chris Hero gave two pile drivers to Kimberly, and like pile drivers legitimately can be dangerous, but if the person you're dropping, you have to hold up and then drop, like if they weigh like 130 pounds, it's a lot easier than if you're trying to do a pile driver to a guy who's 220. Like you're much less likely to make a mistake if it's easy to lift somebody up and then just drop down on your knees than if you're kind of struggling with somebody. But people don't get that. People who don't follow wrestling don't. Those people who are just like, oh, it's so dumb, it's so fake. As soon as they see that, they're like, I can't believe this is violence against women. You're like, well,
Well, no, it's not because they're doing it together. It's
right. And the same thing with the same thing is true of like angles where like racism plays a part. Even Pro Wrestling Sheet, we talked about this, where like it's some Missouri promotion. Some guy, you know, it was a white wrestler and a black wrestler, and to get heat, the white wrestler said like Black lives don't matter, and people are like, oh, this is unacceptable. You can't have this kind of. It's like it's a play. It's like you're watching a play about two guys who are fighting. It's not the guy's not really a racist, and the fans know that. You know, like fans aren't gonna be like, hey, he's right. Black lives don't matter.
Yeah, it's interesting because you know, the thing with wrestling is that, you know, people are often like, "Oh my God, this is like this horrible racist stereotype or whatever," and sometimes like it's really true, but like the and it's less necessary now because you have a lot of storytelling opportunities outside of the wrestling ring. But like if you're
Yep.
talking about wrestling in the '70s, where like every like foreign wrestler was a ridiculous foreign heel, like the reason is because there's not like 20 minutes of talking before the match. Like you have to have a something that's clearly good and bad for the crowd to easily understand. So like
Right.
when you have like a stupid stereotype that's like crime time or something, it's easy for the crowd to pick out who is the bad guy here.
Yep.
So like it's not necessary. I mean, it's taking advantage of uh like shitty stereotypes, but it's not doing it to be like, perpetuating those stereotypes. It's just using them as an easy, like in the way a stage show would have like an overly comical dude twirling his mustache.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to look at it. I mean, this is really like it's the broadest kind of. It's the same thing as like the reason that like in Greek plays as they originally staged, the actors would wear giant masks with like angry expressions or happy expressions painted on because the people sitting way in the back had to know what was going on.
Yeah, they had it's you have to easily be able to recognize who is who in the match. And this is a thing that people don't understand about wrestling that aren't fans of wrestling. Like you don't get the idea that this is like a stage show and it's like a live improvisation that you're watching. And you know, depending on who it is, it's much more improv than others. And like sometimes it's planned out and sometimes not so much. But the thing with it is that for everybody to know what's going on, everything has to be very exaggerated. The moves are exaggerated for a reason. It's so like people who aren't next to the ring can see what's happening. When a wrestler does a huge wind up for a punch, nobody would punch
Right.
like that in real life. They do it
Right.
because they want everybody to see what's happening. And when wrestlers have ridiculous reactions to moves, like they're, squirming around like they've been burned or something, or they're on fire, it's because like the reaction has to be big enough for people in the back to know what's going on. So like, when you have this kind of thing happening where like, you have, you know, some kind of interaction where like, okay, this dude hit this woman and she falls over and she's twitching or whatever, like it's not real. It's not real violence against women. It's not it's not a real thing. So like, but just people don't understand that. They only understand it they're given like a stupid example, when it's like Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. Then people will be like, "Oh, that's not real." But like the second it's a man versus a woman, like all that's out the window, then it's gone. And that's like the kind of simplest, stupidest way to look at wrestling.
Yeah, and I mean everything's exaggerated in wrestling, right? Like it's everything is presented as a caricature, as exaggerated masculinity or femininity or whatever, these larger than life characters. And because the whole thing is a very like kind of like ritualized form of live acting. And honestly, I think a lot of the concern, this kind of concern trolling you get, like, oh, we can't have this if it's women and men wrestling, or we can't, I can't believe they're doing a racist gimmick or whatever. I think it's more of like a patronizing concern about wrestling fans, who people who don't get wrestling think all wrestling fans are like this ignorant, like soon to be like anything could set them off and become a rampaging mob. Like they have no idea that most wrestling fans are just kind of like well-meaning nerds. They just, because wrestling fans tend to be blue collar, they just sort of think of them as like this, like, oh, it's the great unwashed, and like if they're gonna go home and beat up their wives because they saw, you know, this guy at a tier one show in a match with a woman. Like they have no idea what their what the audience even is.
Yeah, it's like based on this kind of stereotype of wrestling fans, basically. This kind of, like you just imagine like the poorest, scummiest people.
Right. Yeah, and of course those people don't. Those are the people who you have to watch out for. They're the ones who can't tell, reality from fiction, even though that's the whole point of wrestling, and like that's what people like about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not 8 years old, you understand that wrestling is not a real match between two competitors.
Right.
Everybody understands that. Everybody in the crowd understands that. The thing with it is that people go in understanding that and still enjoy it, because in the same way that people enjoy a play when you go there and you understand that this isn't a real situation that's happening.
Nope, it's true. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting story. I'm glad the New York Athletic Commission sort of admitted its error, but I hope there's no like like I hope they don't try to rat fuck Tier 1 over this secretly by like screwing with them over their license. And also, man, how ridiculous is it that you have to get? And New York is not the only state. A lot of states have these athletic commissions, sort of theoretically regulating
Nevada, I think, is
wrestling.
another one.
Yeah, I think Missouri is one. Like, there's a lot of states where like even wrestlers have to get like licenses, which is ridiculous. Um, it's like there's no kind of regulation over acting. You wouldn't like you wouldn't have like an athletic commissioner like show up and stop stop Othello because there's a guy beating up a woman in it. I almost said the play was called Iago instead of Othello. That just tells you I always like the heel.
You're rooting for the heel there. You've
Always root for the
renamed
heel.
the play Othello to be
I know.
Iago.
Um, all right. Well, that's our political and social analysis of the week. Let's talk about SummerSlam and Takeover.
Well, Takeover, I guess we can just quickly get out of the way because we actually predicted 100% the outcome of Takeover last week.
Folks, that's why you listen to us, because it's like looking into a crystal ball.
Takeover was 100% predicted correctly. SummerSlam, not so much. But
No, just like real briefly for me, the highlights of Takeover. The tag match was incredible. Gargano and Ciampa against the Revival. The Revival may be my favorite tag team in the world right now. That was just a great match. I love the Bailey Asuka match, and actually, you remember I was worried, even though I said, well, probably Asuka will win. I was really worried that they might throw a wild card. I just didn't want to see. I never want to see Asuka lose. I want to see her retire with the belt like Moolah.
yeah, she should be the champion for like 20 years, just forever.
Uh,
The eternal champion.
the Eternal, exactly. Although I am so soaked that we're finally going to get the Ember Moon Asuka feud that I've wanted for like a year. I thought that match was great, and I love that Nakamura is the champ. I mean, if you're not going to bring him up right away, it makes sense to put the belt on him. He's the biggest star in NXT, and so yeah, I liked Takeover. Although I will say I don't think Takeover upstaged SummerSlam this year the way it did last year.
It did not. Last year it definitely did. It was better. But this year, not so much. I mean, because half the show was stuff like No Way Jose. And,
Yeah,
and you're just like, well, you're not going to get hyped for that.
nope, no, no, and even it was good to see Bobby Roode, but like I can't. What they're doing with Cien Almas, aka La Sombra, like I just sort of don't get it. That was an okay match, but I just didn't. There was no excitement to it for me. Bobby Roode's entrance was the best part.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Um, but let's turn to SummerSlam because this was an interesting show. We predicted this would be the better show, and I think on balance it was, although it was insanely long.
It did feel really long. And like we didn't even watch the pre-match stuff, the many dark matches.
No, so the funny thing is, I was visiting family in upstate New York, and Mark was messaging me, and he was like, "Hey, are we going to watch SummerSlam?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I'm leaving at like 1:30. It's like a 6-hour drive. I was like, I'm leaving at 1:30, so I'll be there in plenty of time. Just thinking it was going to start at 8. And then he like texted me at like 7:15. He's like, "Hey, where are you?" And I was still, on the highway or something. And I just completely forgot that it was 4 hours, and actually more than that with the pre-show.
Yeah, the pre-show had a lot of matches. Um, there
There
were
were three
yeah,
on the pre-show,
3 matches, and
and two of them were almost 15 minutes.
yeah, so you had like an hour pre-show maybe, and then like 4 hours of wrestling. Like it made sense that the crowd was like really dead towards the end.
Yeah, the crowd was not excited at all, and I kind of can't blame them. Um, But so the pre-show, I actually went back and watched some of it. The Sheamus Cesaro match was really good. These two guys, like the thing is, I don't care about this at all. I don't even know why they're feuding. I think the best of seven thing is dumb, but they're both good and they're a good match for each other. They're both like big dudes who take a lot of risks and can really go. And so I'm excited to watch the matches. I just don't really care.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about these. Like we've seen Sheamus and Cesaro fighting for like in like a never-ending battle. It's like you
Yeah, it
know,
feels like they've already had at least seven matches.
it feels like Ragnarok up in here. They're like just constant. It's like a battle forever.
Yeah, I mean, it would that would be fine with me if there was any reason for it. Like if they, if it was like I could watch Owens and Zayn fight forever, just over and over. But like Cesaro and Sheamus, I don't know.
But they have good
They're
matches though, so I can't really.
they do. So yeah, I'm not entirely complaining. I think they're both these guys, particularly Cesaro. There's better ways to use them, but if as long as they're gonna have good matches, I don't care that much. Um, Speaking of Zayn, I watched him and Neville in their match against the Dudley Boys, which is like the definition of filler. I could not bring myself to watch the 12-man tag team match
Yeah,
that
no thanks on that.
the good guys won, just because the phrase 12-team tag team match. Just, I mean, like I want to get up and leave the room as soon as I hear it.
Yeah,
Like
man.
the more guys you put in a ring, the harder it is to have a good match. And 12 guys in a ring. If 12 guys are in a ring and it's not a Royal Rumble or Battle Royal, forget it.
Yeah, geez. Like, there's no good way to do a six tag team match. Like six teams, and like
Yeah.
four of these teams, I never want to see.
I know. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would have loved American Alpha versus Breezango,
That would have been good. I would have watched that.
but like all the other teams, I could care less about. All the other teams are just like in the old days. These would be like guys losing on Sunday Night Heat.
Basically, and you know they're the first match on the pre-show. They're the curtain jerkers.
Yeah, and it's not that kind of thing where the sort of the new idea for big shows is your first match is like a a fast paced, high flying thing to really get people amped up. This is like an old fashioned curtain jerker match where it's just like send out a bunch of guys who aren't ready. Like just whatever, just go out and do whatever. Nobody cares. People are still finding their seats. Um, but SummerSlam proper, uh, the Jericho Owens versus Enzo and Cass was whatever. It didn't do much for me. I liked that Jericho and Owens won, but I don't know. Not a lot of heat for me on that one.
I didn't
Um,
get to see that,
you didn't miss much. The first real like kind of surprise of the night to me was Charlotte beating Sasha.
which we found out was because of an injury.
Right, which was sort of interesting. That like that match was. It's interesting to watch. Tape Machines was talking about this too, and I think he's right. It starts off a disaster. It's dog shit, and then they kind of rally and pull it together even after the injury, which is impressive because by the end it's a good match, and then it has a surprise outcome. And I didn't hate the outcome. I'd like to see Sasha stay as champion longer. Now, obviously, I know that can't happen because of the injury, but I like a surprise. I like to be surprised. One of the criticisms I've had with WWE over the years has been that it's too predictable too often, and they don't take as many chances as they used to. And so, fine, a surprise, good. That's a good way to get into a pay per view. Oh my god, I didn't see that title change coming. Anything can happen.
Yeah, that's not so bad. I mean, it makes sense at least.
Um, the Miz versus Apollo Crews, match of the year.
Yeah, match of the year. 5 minutes of glory.
I like both these guys for different reasons. I like the Miz's personality, but not him as a wrestler. And I like Apollo Crews as a wrestler, but he has no personality.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I could agree with that because man, Apollo Crews, like he does a lot of awesome stuff. He's a good wrestler, but man, he has no personality. He has no charisma. He's like a charisma vacuum.
Yeah, and like I just don't. I think it was way too soon to bring him up to the main roster before he'd established himself in NXT. They don't have anything for him. I mean, you know, uh, I keep going back to the Solomon Crow / Sammy Callahan, how they kind of didn't really do anything with him, but at least he had a dumb gimmick. He was the hacker. Like Apollo Crews isn't even the hacker. He's just a guy.
Yeah, he's just Apollo Crews. Like, uh, I just think of him as bald, smiling black guy.
Yeah.
Like he's always smiling. He's bald. He's got huge muscles. He does flips. But like beyond that, what's his character? Like I just I've got nothing. He's got nothing, and it's bad. It's sad because like I mean I don't know if he could become more charismatic, but like at this point, like he could have good matches with lots of people. Imagine like a John Cena versus Apollo Crews match. Probably would be
Yeah. Oh yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
But like the thing with it is that we're never going to see that because nobody cares enough about Apollo Crews for him to be in a match with John Cena.
No, 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 no. He's lower card. Um,
I mean,
you know, he
they obviously they still are, a little high on him because he wasn't on the pre-show.
right, and he had a title shot. I mean, it was an Intercontinental title shot, but still, they like him. But I don't know that. I don't know what they see in him. He's a good wrestler for sure, but they're giving him nothing to work with character wise.
Yeah, I don't know what they're waiting on with him. I guess like maybe they're hoping that he comes up with something himself. Um, I honestly don't know, but I hope it works out, or they just find something for
Yeah, I mean, he like his gimmick right now is like basically, what if Titus O'Neil could wrestle?
him. Basically, yeah. Maybe they'll just have him team up with Darren Young.
No, yeah, right. Yeah, that's suddenly, and like Darren Young used to be super boring too, but with Bob Backlund, he's actually been kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's true.
As like Bob Backlund has driven him mad, like it's kind of a good gimmick, and like Apollo Crews could use something like that. Bob Backlund coming in to be Apollo Crews' mentor, I think would have been better than Darren Young.
Yeah. It would have been more interesting if they could have. There's lots of things you can do with Apollo Crews. I mean, he doesn't even have to be very charismatic to do it. You can just
No,
ha- do things with him, do anything with him that's at least interesting. They got like the golden truth over by doing stupid stuff where they didn't even win. They just came out and lost all the time, and the fans still were interested in them because they had a good story. Like you could do that with Apollo Crews. Wouldn't be hard.
no, yeah, you could. There are a lot of different ways you could go with him. I mean, you could just like give him, give him like an anger translator, like from the Key and Peele show. Like he's always smiling and happy, but have a manager who's like translates that. In fact, he's an angry black guy who's mad about society or whatever, or his treatment in the WWE, and he comes out and he's smiling. The manager is mad at ringside, and Apollo Crews beats people up. Just do something.
Yeah, I mean anything would be good. It would be great if he came out and did like these really happy promos, and then he had the anger translator.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually not bad.
It would be funny at least.
We've already come up with an idea for Apollo Crews. It's better than what he has now.
Anything is better than
Um,
what he has now, though.
anything is better than what he
He
has
he
now. It's
could
true.
he could be Apollo the Dumpster Drosy, and he would be better than he is now.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but yes, basically almost anything.
He could
Uh,
he could be one man gang too, and he would still be better.
no, that's actually a good idea. Although I think Braun Strowman is really one man gang too.
Yeah, that's true.
He reminds me a lot of one man gang. Um, but anyway, after the Miz Apollo Crews thing, which was fine, it was just like you said, 5 minutes of glory. Um, I have to say, the next match, AJ Styles and John Cena, may be my favorite match on WWE this year.
Almost definitely. It was a really good match.
Everything about it was, first of all, it was long. It was almost 25 minutes, and it didn't feel long. They really like built it so well because going into it, you had to think, all right, Cena's going to win, right? And the way they kept building that expectation, like he kicks out of Styles' finishers, but then Styles would kick out of his finishers, and like the story they were telling, the idea that Styles had like dug down and was going to become every bit as determined to win as Cena has always been, and he was going to basically out determine Cena, and then did and won completely clean. Is not a story I ever would have imagined them telling before. It just the fact that they gave this TNA guy a huge win in the second biggest show of the year over the guy who's been their top guy for a decade. And it was a great match on both sides. I mean, just they both looked fantastic. Styles has a claim to be the best wrestler in the world right now. Cena is certainly a fantastic wrestler. From start to finish, I loved this match.
Yeah, I agree. It was amazing. And it was really good because and I could tell it was really good because there was points where like I really thought Cena was going to win and
Yep, me too.
I was really invested in it. Like I thought like, "Oh man, I can't believe." Well, I was like, "Oh my God, this is it. This one is the end." He did like the AA from the second rope or whatever. That was
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
and I
Yeah.
thought, well, like, fuck, it's over now. There's no way he's gonna kick out of that. And then but no, it was a really good match, and it got like crazy meta where they were like doing each other's finishers and then reversing into the other person's finisher.
Yeah, and they were like doing it in reverse order.
Yeah,
They were like reversing, and it was just so good how they did it. And one of the things I loved about it too, this wasn't anywhere near the main event. It was the fourth match on the main show, and it was the middle of the show. And I love the idea that like Cena and Styles were talking. I have no idea if this is true, but like we're talking about it. We're like, okay, we're gonna blow everyone else away. They're not gonna put us on last. They're not gonna put us in the main event. That's fine. We're just gonna have the only match anyone will talk about.
yeah, we're just gonna have the only match that anyone is ever gonna remember from this show, and basically they did it. After this match, the crowd never got back to where it was during this match.
No.
It never recovered. This is like going on after Jerry Lee Lewis. You just don't want to do it.
Right. Yeah, like yeah, they set the piano on fire and we're like, okay, follow that.
Yeah, basically that's basically what happened. You can't. They uh, they just blew the roof off the place.
And I love the way it ended too, with like Cena taking off the never give up armband and just dropping it in the ring and leaving. Like that was such a good detail. Because remember when he got, I think it was 2 years ago, at SummerSlam 2 years ago, when like Lesnar just manhandled him, and it was such a shocker. And then like they kind of immediately like reversed it the next month at Night of Champions. Um, I loved how like they sort of like they established this idea that like he's been beaten, and like the guy he's been for all this time, that the relentless, hustle, loyalty, respect, never give up guy, like it's been refuted, and he's just like done with it. And maybe he'll come back and he'll just be the same guy he was before, but I love that for that night, for that match, they were like, no, this is like a consequential loss. There was no belt on the line. There was no championship on the line, but there was something bigger on the line. Like he came in, the unstoppable superhero good guy, against this like bad guy who had cheated to beat him before, had never beat him clean, and they wrestle and he loses to the bad guy. I love that. I love that they were willing to take that risk and do that story. And they may fuck it up uh, going forward. But so far I'm watching SmackDown as we're taping, and like Styles is feuding with Ziggler. Like they're not putting Styles back in a 50-50 booking thing where Cena immediately gets his win back. So maybe I mean, and Cena's going to be off TV for a little while, because he's got some other thing going. But I love that's how they set it up. There's like, again, one of the frustrating things about WWE is they can do that, and it's so great. And not just the in-ring stuff is great. All the storytelling around it is great. And then there's so many other things that are just dog shit. And it's like, how can you be so good here and so bad there?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine.
It's like going to someone's house and they've made dinner for you. It's like a four-course meal, and like the main course is absolutely like all local ingredients, fresh and delicious and wonderful. But before that, they're like, "You want Big Macs?"
Do you want some Big Macs? I got some squeeze pups here if you're
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dessert is like one of those Hostess knockoff cupcakes, not even Hostess, like Blostess or something.
it's one of those Mexican import foods.
Yeah, it's like suspiciously low price. You're like, wow, that's like for three cupcakes in a package. It's only 75 cents. How do they make money on
Wow. And we get to wash it down with a little hug.
that?
Those are 10 for $1.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? I just want this main course you've made for me. That's the best part. You're like, no, 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 no. Try the Blostess.
Yeah.
It's just I don't understand the consistency of WWE, but they had a great match. And it's I think for me the best match WWE has put on television in 2016. There have been some good ones, but this one was just so far above the rest. You could put this match in any promotion in the world, and it would be a great match. It's not like a great match for WWE, it's just a great match.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
and then they had the whole after that the tag thing with the club against the New Day and Jon Stewart. Whatever. It was fine. I liked the New Day. I liked seeing Big E come back. That was good, and it was what it had to be, which was it was a cool down after the Styles Cena match.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't much of a match, but you know, it was all right for what it was. I got some giggles out of it, I guess.
Yeah, I love the New Day, and I'm glad they're still champs. But sooner or later, they've got to have the club actually start winning things. Otherwise, they're sort of
Well, the
it's
club
got you
won that
know.
match, sort of. I
Well,
mean,
that's true. They won by DQ. Um, and then Ambrose. This was actually a championship match, one of the three main events. Ambrose, the world champion, and Ziggler. This was actually a good match. Honestly, it was a good match, but I never really got into it because I never believed Ziggler had a chance.
yeah, basically. This one was it wasn't a bad match at all. But I think like we spent more time like trying to figure out what Ziggler had written on his pants than
That's right. Oh, yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. If anyone knows what was written on the seat of his pants, it was like something for free, but there was like writing above the for free that was too small to make out. But the reason we're interested is because he had like these silver space age pants, and on one side was an American flag, and the other was the Gadsden flag, the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, which in the United States has become associated with like the Tea Party movement. So I have no, and Ziggler has said nice things about Donald Trump during this election. So who knows what the hell he was doing? But you're right. We were like you, me, and Mark were more focused on that than we were on the match because none of us believed for a second that Ziggler was going to be the world heavyweight champion.
yeah. So I mean, it was a good match though. There were some good spots. There were points
Yeah.
where
Oh
we're
yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
that was cool. But
Yeah.
like,
Right.
it was you're never invested because Dolph Ziggler can't win anything.
And I also I kind of liked how Ambrose just unabashedly was the bad guy in the match and like played on the whole thing like you can't win, you never win the big thing, and was like, kind of like getting in Ziggler's face and kind of like slapping him around. Like that was good because it actually sort of, I mean, again, in a different context, you'd be like, well, shit, now I want this guy to win. I mean, it gave you like at least something to cling on to. Where you're like, well, Ambrose is being a dick. I hope Ziggler beats him up, even though you knew like, well, Ziggler's not. I mean, Ambrose is right. Ziggler can't win the big one.
Yeah, it's true. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't a bad match. It was just who cares?
Um, and then after that, this okay,
Yeah.
we
Okay.
have to
Yeah.
we have to we have to eat our words here.
Yeah, because last week I'm sure we said that this would easily be the worst match on the card. We were wrong. Um, I'll be the first to admit that when this match started, it was funny because of the fake announcement for
Eva
Eva
Marie.
Marie, and then like the match started, and after the first like 2 minutes, I think I said, this match is already better, way better than I expected it to be,
Yeah.
because like they had already done like some cool stuff, and then like they tagged out, and more people came in, and they continued doing cool stuff, and I was like, the fuck? Why is this
Yeah.
match? What is going on? This match is actually pretty good, and then it ended up being good. I I there were I expected it to be a horrible mess, and I wish that they showed me, I guess, because
The six woman tag, like a six woman tag might actually be the best way for some of these people to show because in like a one-on-one match, there's too many opportunities for them to look bad because it's like you're just out there, it's just two people, and if one of you can't keep up or can't compete, you're going to look bad. But with six people, all these tags back and forth, you come in for like 45 seconds, you do your spot, you tag back out, everybody can look good. I mean, this is how the Big Show is still working, right?
yeah,
On those house shows, he's always in these six-person tags. He does nothing until the very end of the match when the good guys finally get the hot tag. The Big Show comes in, cleans house, everyone cheers, and you're like, hey, Big Show's not so bad. But like then on TV when he comes down and has to do something, you're like, oh fuck the Big Show.
yeah, that's kind of
So like this match, I mean, I we were all impressed. We have to eat our words. I think Naomi's probably a good wrestler. Like
That
Naomi
yeah,
looked,
like I had never thought that before, but after watching this match, I was thinking like, is Naomi secretly a good wrestler? Because this was a good match. She did good stuff in this match.
yeah, she looked good. And I mean, I think the weakest link was Carmella, but they hit it very well by making her the Ricky Morton just getting beat up. Right? Like she didn't have to do anything. She just had to sell convincingly and bump around, and she did that fine. So like that's again, that's like a smart way to handle it. The way that the 6-person tag enables you to be like to hide weaknesses. Like, all right, Carmella's not really a good wrestler, so she'll just come and get beat up, and then eventually make the hot tag, and then Becky or Naomi can come in and do really well.
Yeah, that's they did a really good job with it, and everybody in the match did really well. And I just thought like this was one of the better matches on the show.
It was, and I was super happy to see Nikki Bella return. I know that a lot of nerds hate Nikki Bella, but I legitimately like her. Like she's a really good heel. She comes out and people hate her, which is her job to make them hate her. And she's not a bad wrestler. I mean, she's not Asuka, but like she's a lot better than some of the women who have been much more praised by internet fans in the WWE. So I was happy to see her come back and do it and have a modified finisher that's probably going to be easier on her neck than the rack attack was.
Yeah, that's true. I think it was good. They just everything about that match like just worked. And it's rare to say that about like the people in this match, but it's also rare to say it about a 6-person match. So like
Yes.
it just expectations were totally blown for this match. I expected it to be a mess and awful, and for me to not care about any of it, and it ended up being really good. So, uh, yeah, our expectations were totally blown out of the water. Just totally way surpassed.
The crystal ball gets cloudy at times, folks.
Yeah, well, I
We're
mean,
not we're not
we
infallible.
used up
We're mostly
we used up
infallible.
all of our energy on the NXT show, so like we couldn't
That's
possibly get this one right. I mean,
right. The next match was Finn Balor and Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship. Really good match. Great match, and especially sort of more impressive when you know that Balor was working with a dislocated shoulder and like what a broken arm.
something like that. Yeah.
And when he took the buckle bomb, and we'll talk about this in a second. When he took the buckle bomb, I thought he was hurt, and then then like in the rest of the match, he was like doing stuff normally, and I thought like, oh, okay, that must have just been an angle. It must have just been selling an injury. No, he was really hurt. He was badly hurt, and they just finished the match and did a great job. Good match, good outcome. Really interesting to see they were willing to give Balor the ball and let him run with it, and it just sort of underscores how unfortunate the injury is. And then the final match, which you've already sort of talked about, was the TKO victory for Brock, the Beast Incarnate Lesnar, over Randy Orton, unconscious in a pool of blood.
There
Which
was a lot of blood.
tons and tons of people hated this and were appalled by it. It wasn't a great match by any stretch of the imagination, but it's for me it was completely consistent with Lesnar's character as like this monster who just comes in and hurts people. And like for that reason, it worked for me. I didn't love it. Definitely not my favorite match on the card. Not even my second or third favorite match on the card. But fine. I mean, that's what you expect out of Lesnar for him to come out and like damage people.
Yeah, I mean, it's consistent at least. I can give it that. I didn't particularly enjoy it. I thought like it felt short,
It
but
did feel short.
possibly it was short because of the cut and everything. But like
Right.
the idea of it was from the beginning. It's just like who wants this match? Who is interested in this match? Um,
Right. Exactly. Why were we like? They kept saying like, "Oh, 15 years in the making, 15 years in the making," but like, I never saw these guys as rivals.
yeah. And they did do that little interview thing in the beginning, which was a little bit funny. It was funny because like Randy Orton had that interview where he's like talking about like, oh, we came up together, and then like it switches to Brock Lesnar, and he's like, I don't know anything about Randy Orton.
Yeah, I know. I did like
I
that. I
thought that
liked
was
how it
funny.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. Um, but yeah, otherwise, not. I was not all that interested in this fight. The outcome. And it looks like they're gonna. I mean, obviously Lesnar is on Raw and Orton is on SmackDown, so they're not gonna cross paths again, which is probably better for everybody. Um, but so that was the two big events. We didn't watch Evolve on Friday. I was in Ithaca, or I was probably on the road during Evolve. But I heard Evolve was really good. But I'm sort of suspicious about that at this point. The thing I did want to talk about though is so this came up uh, basically as soon as we all found out that Finn Balor had been hurt. Is Seth Rollins Seth Rollins an unsafe wrestler? Now, this was actually an accusation made by Bret Hart in an interview earlier this month, where he said he thought that he had respect for Rollins. He thought Rollins was good, but that Rollins was not a safe guy to wrestle in the ring based on what he had seen. So we know that Bret Hart is a grumpy old man. Absolutely, that's his thing. But he's also one of the best wrestlers who's ever laced up a pair of boots, right? And he doesn't say this about everyone. And there's some anecdotal evidence that July 2015, remember, Rollins was wrestling Cena and Rollins broke Cena's nose with a knee and actually blamed Cena for it. I didn't remember that, but I was going back and reading, and at the time, Rollins said John's the first person to tell you he's clumsy, which is like a kind of a shitty thing to do when you've broken somebody's nose, to be like, well, you're clumsy.
Yeah.
And then, of course, with that buckle bomb, he ended Sting's career, right? Now, in fairness, Sting's career was basically over anyway. He was 56 years old, but that was a nasty injury. And then with the same move at SummerSlam, Rollins put Finn Balor on the shelf for 6 months. So wrestling being wrestling, instead of like avoiding this or not talking about it, they're of course now playing it up, right? That's now becoming part of Rollins' thing. Like they had Sami Zayn suffer a storyline injury, and they, I guess there was a segment on Raw last night that wasn't taped, or I should say wasn't broadcast, but the fans saw it, and now it's on the WWE YouTube channel, where Seth brags about sending people to the hospital. And that's like his thing now. He's the guy who sends people to the hospital, man. And so I want to get your thoughts on this. First of all, I mean, again, like neither one of us has wrestled Seth Rollins, so we don't really know. But do you think it's possible the guy is maybe taking too many risks or doing something in a way? Because three kind of big injuries in a year is notable, especially when Rollins has only wrestled for half of that year.
Well, I mean, it seems a little likely. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to get away from evidence like that. Where just three big injuries in 1 year is not exactly. I mean, and like you said, he hasn't even been wrestling for half of it, so kind of kind of makes a little bit of sense. Like, if anything, maybe you should stop doing that buckle bomb move because
Yes.
um, uh, two of the three injuries is because of that.
Yeah, and I mean it's it's like the old saying: once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, three times is a conspiracy. You three injuries and twice with the buckle bomb. The ironic thing is too, they made him stop doing the curb stomp move because of that concussion lawsuit. He never hurt anyone with that. Like he's hurt people with his knee and he hurt people with the buckle bomb, but it's the actual finisher that was banned because it was too dangerous looking. He never actually hurt anybody with it. Um, and like I don't know if he's an unsafe guy or anything like that, but you're right. Some of the evidence, you know, Sting, all right, Sting was old and it'd probably be pretty easy to injure a 56-year-old man, even one in really good condition. But Balor, the same move. I don't know. Like you're throwing a guy with his back to where he's going to land, and that's a dangerous thing to do. It seems to me you have to take real special care into making sure you don't hurt him. And the thing is, there are indie wrestlers who do buckle bombs like every week, and they don't hurt people. The Team Pazuzu guys do buckle bombs all the time. I've seen them do like scary, scary looking buckle bombs, and nobody gets hurt. So I don't know. I mean, I don't. It's probably not fair for fans to say a guy's unsafe, but you know, I don't know. These are three notable injuries, and twice with the same move. You have to wonder if something's there.
Yeah, I mean, it it's not out of the realm of possibility at this point. And like if someone like Bret Hart is saying it,
Yes.
that it adds a bit of credibility to that story. If because if just like random people on the internet are saying it, you can just be like, well, bad stuff happens in the ring. It's not always like somebody's fault. I'm sure Seth Rollins didn't blame Kane when he tore his knee up. Um,
Right.
but the thing with it is that like
Remember, he was that he he got that injury doing a power bomb.
yeah,
His power bomb is even dangerous to himself.
yeah. But so the thing with it is that but when you have someone like Bret Hart saying it, maybe I assume Bret Hart has a better eye for wrestling than probably almost anybody on the internet. So if Bret Hart is like watching not Shane, Seth Rollins' matches and saying like he looks unsafe to me, then
Right.
it's probably there's probably a little bit of validity to that claim.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's one thing for you and me and Joey Jabroni to say like, oh, this guy looks unsafe, but Bret Hart knows safe wrestlers, and I mean, Bret Hart watching a wrestling match is seeing things that you and I don't see. And if he's watched this guy and said, I don't know about that, that carries a lot of weight with me. Because again, I mean, Bret Hart is a grumpy old man, but he doesn't just like throw accusations at people. He doesn't come out and say like, oh, everyone sucks, everyone's terrible, I was great, everyone's a bad wrestler. And he even like, he balanced the criticism with praise. Like, I like Seth Rollins, he does a lot of things right. I just think he's not the safest guy. So I don't know. I don't know if it's something they have to address I mean, they're obviously addressing it in storyline version by having him brag about it, which is what you'd expect out of wrestling. I mean, that's not surprising to me. And I'm sure everyone involved, Finn Balor, John Cena, Sting, they all know. They're all wrestlers. They all get it. But like, you don't want to see guys' careers end, as it did with Sting, um, because somebody is taking too many chances or chances they shouldn't take. The Finn Balor thing is particularly egregious because he won this championship, the first Universal Champion, and it's a big deal. I mean, he was gonna. It was really interesting to see the company take such a big risk, on Raw, their flagship program, to have their champion be this guy who was a big star in Japan and would come over and had just been up on their main show for a couple of weeks. Like, I was really impressed that they were willing to. I thought Rollins was going to win.
Yeah,
I
I
was really
thought
impressed.
Rollins was going to win too.
It just made more sense. Um, but they went in the Balor direction, and like, it's over. Like, he'll be back in 6 months, but he's 35 years old and he's got limited time. And who after seeing that, who knows if they're going to take a chance and say, okay, you can get the belt back. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do in 6 months. He didn't establish when Rollins got hurt. He'd already established himself as a top guy. Balor did not. He was about to establish himself, but in 6 months, if people are going to be like, oh yeah, yeah, he was the guy who had it for less than 24 hours, whatever. I don't know. It's really unfortunate. And if who knows, if CrossFit Jesus there, Seth Rollins is doing unsafe things, and I certainly hope I certainly hope he stops. There, I said it. Took a
Stop being unsafe if you're being unsafe.
If you're being unsafe. Um, so the last planned thing I want to talk about is I this is kind of me eating my words too. So the Cruiserweight Classic, one of the name when they were unveiling the names, I was like, oh, this is so awesome, this is so awesome, I can't believe it, Kota Ibushi, for God's sake. And then I saw Brian Kendrick's name, and I was like, oh, come on. He was good, but God, he's been around forever, and it's just kind of like, oh, Brian, like there's only 32 guys in the tournament, and they just picked this guy, like the guy who'd been on WWE and was just kind of kicking around, not doing much. Like, oh, really? Well, for me, he has been like not my favorite guy in the tournament in terms of like in-ring stuff. At least very good, but just his personality, his character, just for the tournament, I like he's much more captivating than anyone else. Because to me, all the other guys, it's just like, hey, I really want to win this tournament because it would be great. Whereas with him, it's this whole story about how he's like, 36-year-old Brian Kendrick knows that 37-year-old Brian Kendrick's not going to get this chance. And he's like, he's the old man in a young man's game. He's like the grizzled gunslinger for, like in the Last Chance Saloon. And he kind of like, he knows he's not as good as these guys like anymore. He can't keep up with them physically anymore. So he has to like gut it out and like pull out all these dirty tricks and do all this stuff to like claw and scrape to a win, and he's advanced now. I love it. it's to me it's so compelling. It's such a great story to tell in the context of a tournament with a limited lifespan. It's the kind of story ESPN would tell. Um, and it adds to their whole like this is a real sporting event feel, which I think elevates the cruiserweight classic above so much other stuff. So I was talking on Twitter last night like I love Brian Kendrick's grizzled old man character because they were running ads for it, and a friend of ours who was an indie wrestler for years and who wrestled Brian Kendrick many times was tweeting me and was saying like not only is he a terrific wrestler and everything, but actually a very nice guy, one of the nicest guys he'd ever worked with, and always went out of his way to help people out and stuff. And that was good to hear too. You always like to hear that someone who's a good wrestler is also a good person. But I just wanted to say, like, for underappreciated wrestlers, I think Brian Kendrick. I mean, he's the sort of comeback player of the year in that coming into the cruiserweight, there were all these sort of glitzier names, and some of those guys have really delivered. But this one guy who kind of came in and you thought like, oh, is this an afterthought? Is this like a reward because he trained Eva Marie? Because he was like the one guy who was willing to like show her how to do things. And he's turned out to be, to me, like the sleeper hit of the tournament. Like he's so compelling. Like I'm actually invested in the outcome of his matches. Even though I don't think he's going to win, I think it's going to be Ibushi or maybe Zack Sabre. Um, I still love it. I just want to I just want to say that this is a great thing that WWE is doing, and it puts into stark relief all the stuff they do that's not great. It's like you see, well, you can do this one thing really well. I don't know why you can't do the other things really well. Um, but yeah, if you ask me to pick like who do I think is underappreciated, but is really great, I would say Brian Kendrick in 2016. We were talking about this last time with the who's having the best 2016. I don't know if I'd put him in the top 20, but as guys who nobody expected to have a great 2016, he's come a long way.
It's true. You know, he's been really good. I mean, he's out of the tournament, but like, I mean, he wasn't going to beat Ibushi, but you know,
No,
his presence was really good in the tournament, I thought. And I think like, did he get signed to a contract again for the cruiserweights? 'Cause
I think so. Yeah,
they did announce recently like some people who were signed. Was it Brian Kendrick was? I know Cedric Alexander was in there.
I
Um,
believe Kendrick is one of them. I think they were showing them on TV the other night, and I think it was him, Cedric Alexander, maybe Noam Dar, who has not impressed me that much in the tournament.
let's let's look at that. Let's let's research this right now. Um,
Live action research, folks. That's what you get.
I saw an article about it earlier. Now I just got to find it again. Well, well, isn't this embarrassing? Can't find it.
It's all right. Well, you know what? We'll find it. We'll put it up. We'll put it up on the blog. But yeah, if not, if they haven't signed him, they should. But I think they have, right? I don't know.
Well, he made it that far
Uh,
into the tournament. You'd think they'd um I don't know. It's you'd figure that a bunch of those people who made it in would be would be perfect for the kind of cruiserweight division on Raw, but let's see. So
I should say I've heard conflicting things about Ibushi. That like he wants to sign, but he also wants to keep doing indies, and they're hemming and hawing about that. And
yeah, well, like I said, I would be really surprised if Ibushi did sign, if only because like even in Japan, he's like all over the place. Like he never wants to be in one company ever.
yeah, he seems like the kind of guy who knows what he wants and just is happy with that. Like he doesn't want to be tied down to one company. Um, but some of the other guys like Lince Dorado has like announced his signing, which is good. He's really good. And I hope Grand Metalik also. I believe he's also signed.
Yeah, I think that's true. Who do you think is gonna be in the finals? They didn't.
They have not.
It's
No,
probably Zack Sabre Jr. versus Ibushi, you'd assume,
that would be my guess.
but it could be Grand Metalik.
It could be. Yeah. Just my hunch is that Ibushi and Saber Jr. will be in the final, and one of those guys will be the winner. And Saber Jr. is going to sign. What I've heard is that he'll sign next year, but he has like commitments to Noah and stuff that take him through the end of the year.
Hmm.
Um,
Zack Sabre Jr. versus Kota Ibushi. It will be a good match.
that will be a good match. That will be a good match. Um, but yeah, so I've loved the stuff they've done, and it's good to see grizzled old man Brian Kendrick get a look in. Um, I think that's it for this week. I have two wrestling events coming up this weekend, and they're pretty exciting.
Is this
Uh,
is this the one where you're gonna get to see um, Jushin Thunder Liger?
yes. So that's Sunday. Sunday. Okay, this is a Sunday afternoon in rural Connecticut. The lineup includes Jushin Thunder Liger versus Travis Gordon, who's a very good young high flyer locally. Warbeard Hansen versus Kamai Tachi. Um, Caleb Connolly against Vinny Marcellia. That's a good match anywhere. Donovan Dijak teaming with Mike Webb against two local guys. And Cody Rhodes against Sammy Callahan. And this is happening in a rural town hall that holds maybe 200. I think 200 is a probably generous assessment. I think it's probably less than that. It's going to be so crazy. I'm so excited for the show. It's the same day as a Beyond Wrestling show, and normally I do not miss Beyond Wrestling shows. Since May of 2015, I've only missed one Beyond Wrestling show in Providence, Rhode Island, and not much could keep me away from Beyond. But I want to see Liger, and the opportunity to see him like in a fucking tiny gym is just too much to pass up. Because he's wrestling the night before in like a big minor league ball. He's coming out and doing a tour for this company and doing a bunch of minor league ballparks. And I think like his last day, he just had like an extra day, so it's an extra payday for him. What the hell does he care where he's wrestling? Um, but it's very much to my benefit because I don't really like going to minor league ballparks to see shows, but I love going to small gyms. Um, and then Saturday, actually, before that is Blitzkrieg Pro in Enfield, Connecticut, which is a really good local promotion, and they're pulling in some pretty well known indie dudes. Chris Hero and Tommy End are going to be there, and if it's anything like previous Blitzkrieg shows, like purely local guys, like literally from the town where the show is, will get these huge reactions. And then these guys like Chris Hero and Tommy End, who've wrestled all over the world in the indies and are like indie legends, will come out and the crowd will just be like, whatever, who is this guy? But I'll be cheering. Also on the card, I know your favorite, the Vampire Warrior, Gangrel.
Tom,
Yep.
are you gonna get a Fangin' and Bangin' T-shirt?
I'm gonna get a fangin' and bangin' tattoo. No, I don't know. I'll probably get a fangin' and bang. Why not? Right? How could you not? Gangrel's gonna be there. I might just buy a T-shirt just to have him record a short video of him saying fangin' and bangin' and then upload it to the blog.
That would be worth it.
That'd be worth it. Also, Kevin Nash. He's not wrestling.
Well, that's good.
He'll tear his quad.
Just he might do that walking from his car to the building. You never know.
He might. He very well might. But I have to say, like, I think my friends are at their limit for wanting to hang out with me, for which I don't blame them, or maybe their limit for shows because I was so excited about these shows and I got tickets and everything. And I was asking the guys I usually go to shows with, and I was expecting them to be just as excited as me, and they were like, maybe not.
Oh,
So it looks like I'll be flying solo to these two shows, but that's fine.
nobody wanted to go to either.
No,
Not,
there's still some possibility of the Sunday
not
show.
even the
But
Liger show.
I
Cody
know
Rhodes is there. Jeez.
it's Liger on a Sunday afternoon in a fucking rural town hall. Cody Rhodes, Sammy Callahan, Jushin Thunder Liger, Donovan Dijak. I don't know what else to tell you, but no, I think it's just gonna be me. That's okay. I'd rather go with friends. I always have a good time with my friends, but like I'm not missing these shows.
Man, if only I were still living in Connecticut.
I know. I know. Can you imagine? So yeah, so this is I mean, I've kind of gotten into a good groove where like I just go to wrestling shows at the end of the month. For a while I was going like every week and that's too much. I was getting burned out. But now just like a couple shows at the end of the month, it's great. And I'll miss Beyond this month, but I'm looking forward to getting back there in September. Whatever they've got cooking. They have a great show on Sunday too. Beyond is a great card. And it's going to be a lot of fun, but I won't be able to be there because I want to see Jushin Thunder Liger. Because I can see Beyond every month, but this is the only chance in my life I've had to see Jushin Thunder Liger. And like he's a guy who's like 50 something and he still has really good matches.
Yeah, albeit his matches are more comedy matches now, but they're still good.
It's true, but they're not bad. Like he doesn't. I think he's like incapable of having a bad match.
Yeah, man. If only I could have seen Liger in like the 90s, that would have been great.
Oh man, yeah. Watching some of his old matches like on YouTube or something is just
I
it's
mean,
such a phenomenal.
just watch Monday Nitro from like 96.
Yep.
You can see all types
Yeah.
of great Liger matches.
He's a phenomenally talented guy. And still to this day is a phenomenally talented guy, even though he's like old and kind of pudgy. To me, that only adds to his appeal.
It's great. Yeah.
And like Kamaitachi, who I saw in against ACH at a Ring of Honor show, he's fucking incredible. He's really good. And him against Warbeard should be really interesting, like a real styles clash there, where like Warbeard is like the big dude who's very agile for a big dude, but is still a big dude, and then Kamaitachi is this lunatic just jumping around, flying around all over the place. But yeah, these are not popular cards with my friends. Whatever, you know what? Who needs people?
Boo.
I have indie wrestling.
Boo to Mark and Mike.
That's all right. I understand. They got a lot of other stuff. I think Mike has like tickets to a baseball game, and Mark does a lot of stuff too. So I understand. I understand. It's fine. What about you? You have anything coming up?
No. Um, I think their DDT has their big show, but I'm not gonna go because it's too expensive to get tickets. But I really wanted to go because Terry Funk is on the show for some reason.
That's right, Terry Funk.
But man, I I would say I should see Terry Funk, but I know he'll be back when he's like 95 anyway, still wrestling, doing moonsaults and shit.
It's true. Yeah, it's not quite like seeing Liger because you know that Terry Funk. I mean, Terry Funk is going to outlive us all.
Yeah, Terry Funk will outlive everybody. Any news that Terry Funk has died is a lie.
It's a lie. He's not going anywhere. There'll always be an opportunity to see Terry Funk. Although probably more in Japan than the U.S. He reportedly doesn't like doing indie shows that much, but he likes going to Japan.
He's Terry Funk.
I was listening to the AIW podcast. The card will change, which is really good if you like podcasts and wrestling. It's by the guys who actually book AIW, so it's interesting from that perspective. And they were talking about they had tried for like years to get Terry Funk to come to an AIW show, and he was kind of like, I don't like independence, but they don't treat me right. People don't. So they finally like they booked as friends of his, and the friends vouched for these guys, and so they finally got Terry Funk. And when he I'm telling their story, whatever. And he gets into Cleveland, and they're like, okay, we're taking him out to like a fancy fucking restaurant. Like we're gonna like do it up nice. We got a nice hotel room for him. We're gonna like go to like an expensive restaurant, buy him a giant like high quality steak. And so they meet him at the airport, and they're like, Terry, some really nice restaurants. Where would you like to go? What do you want? And Terry's like, is there an IHOP around here? And they were like, yeah, there's IHOP. He's like, oh, I'd love to go to IHOP. So like apparently whatever treatment he had from independent promoters before, it was like so bad like that an IHOP seemed like a step up.
It was sub IHOP levels.
It was sub IHOP.
That's
like whatever these fucking scumbags before AIW did to Terry Funk. It was so bad he's like, I just want to go to IHOP, guys. IHOP. Not there's anything wrong. Well, actually, IHOP is it's late at night or a holiday and you're hungry food.
I haven't eaten at an IHOP for a really, really long time, like 15 years maybe. But I couldn't imagine any situation where I'd be like, I have this, I have my choice of restaurants. Fucking IHOP.
I know. Because they give those four different kinds of syrup at your table, and it's laps of
I
luxury.
mean,
Roman
that's the
Roman
best part.
emperors.
That's the best part about IHOP, really. Four different types of syrup at the table. But beyond that, though, um, not so many high points for the old IHOP.
No, sir. No, I haven't been to an IHOP in over a decade. Oh no, maybe it's about 9 years. I remember it vividly because it was Easter Sunday and I was living in West Virginia, and my friend Shea and I think we had to work. And then we were like, we want to eat, but everything's closed on Easter Sunday in West Virginia. And we are like, well, there's nowhere to go. Our usual restaurants, like everybody was closed. I think maybe even the Chinese restaurant was closed. It was nuts. Do you know what was open? IHOP. So we went to IHOP, and you know what the mistake we made was? We didn't get pancakes.
Oh wow, jeez.
We
You
got like dinner food.
you've really made a mistake then.
Yeah, don't do that. I had like a chicken sandwich or something, and let me tell you, that is not IHOP. If you're going to IHOP, get the pancakes. Don't don't make the mistake I did.
There was no Waffle House by you? What?
No, the weird thing, West Virginia, although many people think of it as a southern state and therefore a state that should have the Waffle House, there are no Waffle Houses in West Virginia. It's a IHOP state, and there's also a small. It's not everywhere, but there's like a weird variant called the Omelet Shop, and the
That
omelet.
doesn't sound as good.
It's not as good. No, if there was a Waffle House, we would have been all over that. A Waffle House is a good option, but yeah, no Waffle House in West Virginia. That's a shocker. Also, I don't think no, there might be a Golden Corral. There's a great. You can always tell what part of the country you're in the United States by the chain restaurants. And if you
Was there
see,
Perkins?
yes, there was Perkins, but
Okay.
there was no Perkins. Perkins was like in the northern part of the state. There's no Perkins in Charleston.
Well then.
Perkins is like a Denny's.
Yeah,
It's
it's like Denny's.
like a last resort Denny's.
It's like a Denny's for even older people.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
It, it, Perkins is like very close to Parkinson's is all I'm saying. That's
I had one of the most troubling and surreal meals of my life at a Perkins in Wheeling, West Virginia. It's a story for another time, but yeah. Uh, anyway, none of these places are good for the food, and it's shocking that Terry Funk was perfectly happy with an IHOP. But it just shows he's down to earth.
he could have had something good. He went for the
Yeah, he could
IHOP.
have something good. I'm sure Cleveland has good restaurants. It's a big city. Um. Anyway, so that's what I'm doing this weekend. I'll if anything exciting happens, I'm legitimately 100% going to try to ask Kevin Nash if he has any good matches. I'm not going to ask in that way because I don't want to get beat up by Kevin Nash. But Mark had a really good suggestion on how to phrase it to him, and I think I'm going to do that.
Do it.
Although I've now forgotten what it was. I'll ask Mark before the show.
Tell us again, Mark. Write it in an email note to Tom.
Yeah, let me know what how I should phrase it to Kevin Nash. Because then if he has a suggestion, then we have to watch it and review it for the show.
It'll be the best recommendation. Straight from the horse's mouth.
From my dream, of course, is him like, you know what, man, I'm going to level with you. I don't have any good matches. He's not going to say that, but that would be great.
I wish he would say that. He'd be like, "Well, what kind of a good match are you talking about? Are you looking at some kind of cool like one where I do a lot of moves and do some cool stuff?"
Because I don't have any of those. Man, I hope Kevin Nash never hears this or finds us.
Well, he's gonna find you, Tom. He's gonna find you this weekend.
I'm definitely going to see Kevin Nash, and I'm going to try to ask him.
He's gonna
If he has any
he's gonna
matches.
already recognize you, and if he does that,
Yeah, I walk up to him. He's like, "Oh, hey, the Trans-Pacific Podcast guy. Where's your partner, buddy?"
and then what you should do then is run.
Then I should
You don't
run.
have to run.
Yeah,
Just walk at a brisk pace. It's not like Kevin Nash is gonna run after you. It's a terror squad.
Oh man. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a good time. I'm gonna have a good time. I'm a fucking loser who goes to wrestling shows by myself. But you know what? That's all right. That's all right. Um, well, listen, if for some reason you're craving more wrestling content,
If
uh,
you have any more, oh wait, we have one more thing we have to talk about. It's not wrestling related, but it's Tom Breen related. We have a that Tom has partaken in an interview related to something else we work on that's not this podcast, our our book imprint. And if you're interested in our book imprint, which we'll have a bit of a wrestling and podcast crossover in the near future,
it
um,
will.
you should check out the interview with Tom on the Spook Lights podcast. Um,
If you search Spooklight on YouTube, you'll find it.
yeah, it's on YouTube. Just search for Spook Lights. There's only a couple episodes right now, and you just find the one that says Tom Breen on it. Or if you're listening to this in the future, the two that have Tom Breen on it because it's two parts.
Oh,
It's only
it's two
it's
parts.
only one part released right now. But if you really can't get enough of just Tom, or you really dislike me and you wish I wasn't in the conversation, you could totally listen to that podcast. It'll have other people in the conversation talking about totally different topics, but it's related to Tom. And if you're listening to Tom all the time on this podcast, you must at least be somewhat fond of him.
You
So
must tolerate me.
yeah, I mean,
Uh,
you
Also, part two, there will be news about this podcast and about a wrestling related project in the near future. So wait for part two to drop. If you're like, I can't, I can only handle so much Tom. I can't listen to two parts. My advice to you, my friend, is to wait for part two because that will have material relevant to your
it
interests.
will have wrestling related content. Um, I haven't heard it myself, so I can't even tell you how much wrestling related content. But there is definitely a wrestling related project coming from our book imprint, and it's nothing related to real wrestling. I'll give
No,
you that.
no, no, no. Yeah, we will talk more about it when we're and actually like the being finished with it is near future. We're not talking like 10 years from now. We're talking about like, 6 weeks from now. So, or even sooner. So, stay tuned. We'll talk about it on this podcast when it's done, and we'll talk about it on the blogs. We'll talk about it on Twitter. We'll talk about it so much you'll get sick of it. You'll get so sick of it. And the only way to make it stop, the only way to make the pain stop, will be to buy the product.
Yeah, you'll have a fever, and the only cure will be buying our wrestling project book.
Yes, but my hunch is that many of you will like it. It's going to be something a little different, not the typical wrestling thing you get. There's a lot of these hip wrestling fanzines now. A lot of the hip wrestling fans are making fanzines and print on demand things, showing off their knowledge of terms like, you know, blade job, huh? And red means green, and and they're showing off their hip wrestling skills. But you know what? This is not going to be a fanzine. This is not typical. Nobody is doing this. We're the only ones doing this thing that we're doing, which may be bad. Maybe the reason no one's doing it is because no one wants it. But you know what? We're going to boldly go where no one has gone before. I hope we don't get sued by Star Trek. I want to retract
The
that.
book is not
We're
Star
gonna.
Trek related though, so don't get your hopes up there.
It's not. Yeah, no, no. It has nothing to do with Star Trek. It's wrestling related, but it's not a typical wrestling fanzine. In fact, it's not a fanzine at all. It's going to be very different. I think it's going to be something you'll enjoy. And just a hint, it'll be appropriate for the Halloween season. That's it. That's all I'm going to say.
That's a good enough preview. We'll probably talk more about it next week.
We will talk about more about it next week, as we're closer to getting a definite street date. In the meantime, there's some fantastic more wrestling content. Closetofanxiety.tumblr.com just posted something tonight making fun of the new SmackDown belt designs, and it's going viral, folks. People love my wacky zingers about the SmackDown belts. So head on over there to get all your pictures of old tag teams and snarky comments about Seth Rollins and that kind of thing. It's all there. You can also find Joe at hawkageandjoe.tumblr.com. You can head over to the old Twitter machine, and you can find me at TJ Breen and Joe at xcornmuffinx. Some people tweeted us. We love it. People tweet us with questions or reactions to the show. That's all good. And keep it up. I'm always on Twitter. so you'll always get me. And there's often a lot of wrestling related tweets. So it's not. Sometimes you go to Twitter and it's just me talking about politics. That's mostly in the past.
It's mostly done. No one wants to talk about politics anymore. It's not cool.
Right. It's all wrestling now. Well, not all wrestling. I'm looking at my tweets here. Oh, I tweet something about the anniversary of the United Farm Workers strike. I guess that's politics. But then, boom, making fun of the belt designs. Boom, making fun of the belt designs. Intergender wrestling story. A lot of wrestling content. You need to follow my Twitter. Anyway. Oh, and also I'll post pictures from these shows if I get any good ones. It's hard. Beyond shows have spoiled me because you can stand right at the ring and take pictures, and you obviously get better pictures the closer you are. But for the show on Sunday, the show with Liger, I'm in the second row, and the rows are really, really close to the ring. I was in the second row at one previous show and got some good pictures, so I expect that to be the case.
I demand good pictures of Liger.
Um, I'm gonna try my best to get some good pictures of Liger. I'm gonna get like doors open at 2:30. I'm gonna be there like at 2 because I want to be able to get like a good seat. Um, I anticipate this one filling up pretty quick. If it's not sold out now, I imagine it'll be sold out by Sunday.
Yeah, it seems like it's a small place, so you know, hard to
If it,
hard to find a smaller group of people when you have Liger and Cody Rhodes on the and
if it's not sold out, folks, I don't know what the heck is wrong with wrestling fans in the Nutmeg State. I'm just gonna say that. All right. Well, I think that's it for this week. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back next week with all kinds of exciting news and maybe a great Kevin Nash anecdote, or maybe he'll just beat me up. You never know. Thanks, everybody.
see you guys next time.